Is there a live audience?
What? No, it's not live, but like
Oh,
I
okay.
like people to feel like they're just hanging out with us.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. Jumping into the conversation, I was just telling our amazing guest, Mariam or Mariam, whichever you prefer, who has joined us, and we were already chatting a little bit. And as usual, I was like, this is the stuff I want people to hear. So let's just press record. So the first question I usually ask is, what does it feel like to be in your body at this moment in time on this planet?
Oh man, that's such a good question. Relief,
Mm.
calm, a lot of tranquility,
Hmm.
which is recent to me, as you know. So it's just this very peaceful knowing that I'm here to have an impact of whatever I want, really. And luckily for everyone, it's my service to others. And it's the best way that I can articulate it is like a warm blanket, of
Mm.
comfort.
Yes.
So it's just such a peaceful way of being after not being this way for most of my life. Yeah.
Right, right. You have that contrast, so you can appreciate it way more
Exactly.
than
Mhm.
someone who hasn't had all those experiences. So going back, I know you've shared a lot online about your history, but what's a little bit about, I know more online from like your late sort of teens onward. What was your like young childhood like?
So I'm the first born of Pakistani immigrant parents, right? So it's the typical, I was in charge of like my younger siblings, and I didn't learn English till I went to first grade. I'm translating text documents for my dad at 7 because he doesn't speak
Yeah.
English or read English. My mom was a bit checked out, a lot checked out.
Hmm.
So a lot of my, I guess, parenting came from my father, who was in a foreign country, didn't speak English, and all he knew was to work. Like
Yeah.
that's all he knew. We grew up in a village in Pakistan. He worked from when he was a child. He's the eldest of his siblings.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of responsibility fell on him.
Yeah. It
Exactly.
was like he took it from someone and he gave it to you. So you were born into the service industry, basically.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Hence why I like to serve.
Why you
Yeah.
have so much experience.
Exactly. So that was uh, from early childhood all the way till about 18.
Hmm.
It was a lot of taking care of my siblings, my mom, doing stuff with my dad, for my dad. I was his little sidekick everywhere we go together. I was right there next to him and helping my siblings, with school. I was the firstborn girl, and then I had two brothers right after me.
Hmm.
And so it was my responsibility to parent them.
Yeah.
My parents didn't, know how to help us in school. So I'm the one that was doing their homework and making sure that we got to and from school. And
Yeah.
when we were younger, we went to Quran study. So we read the Quran, and I was
Hmm.
in charge of us making sure we got back and forth to Quran study together. So it was
Wow.
a lot of responsibility, but it didn't feel weird. It just felt like, okay, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was all you knew. That was your norm. And you just were going along with it. And that you said mentioned the Quran studies. Were those like right around school age as well, or did that start later?
Oh no, that was going on the same time we were in in elementary school, middle
Mhm.
school, high school, and the Quran studies definitely took priority over our normal studies for sure. That's our religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
it was
so
going on.
how did that connection with the both religious and spiritual concepts that you were exposed to through those studies, how did that influence like that phase of your life?
Honestly, being completely transparent, it felt like punishment.
Mm.
It really did because I actually really enjoyed school, like, elementary school, my teachers, topics were fun. I understood. I was such a good student. But then for Quran, I didn't know what I was reading. It was all, Arabic. So we were
Mm-hmm.
reading for memory, and we were reading, this is what you do. And if you didn't pronounce it right, you got beat pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I didn't like it. It felt very punishing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look forward to it. Um, I remember making this comparison to my Quran teacher at the time. And I was like, it's so funny that in like American schools, when we're in elementary school and middle school, we're taught to be studious and quiet and pay attention and focus. And then you go to Quran study, you gotta like scream read
Yeah.
the, you know, the surahs and the different chapters. And like if you're not scream reading, you're not doing anything right. And then you're getting beat down. And so it's like the dichotomy of the two different rights, you
It's
know.
like, which one am I right now?
So imagine as a child, which one would any child
Yeah.
prefer, right? So I absolutely loved school, and it felt like a break from home, break from taking care of my siblings. I got to excel. I was a good student, so I got treated really well. And so, of course, you know, I favored school instead of Quran study.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there anybody in your circle or in your home who was into more of the spiritual side of things, or was that not a part of it at that phase?
Not, I wouldn't say spiritual. It was just what the actual, like, you know, the prayer 5 times a day,
Mhm.
Ramzan once a year. Spirituality, I would say my dad was definitely spiritual. He would definitely, like, if we got sick, he had this little ritual with us where he would say us a prayer over us and then
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
fake
Yeah.
spit.
Yeah. 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 I love that. In the Jewish community, sometimes people do that too. It's like, yeah.
Yes,
I
I
bet they come
remember
from the same origin.
it, actually there's a lot more similarities than
So
there are different.
many. I
Yeah,
know.
so my dad was definitely more of the spiritual, light-hearted person in the family. And then we grew up in predominantly Mexican neighborhood, so we
Mhm.
had the Catholic religion really prominent in our neighborhood. And it was I just remember my dad just, you know, with his prayers and the little I guess it was just, it's just very endearing. Just remember my dad. My mom, she was just so checked out. It's hard for
Mm.
me to recall
Mhm.
other than just her being in a constant state of depression. That's
Mhm.
I my biggest memory of my mom as we were growing up, she was constantly the victim. You
Yeah.
know, it was always like, woe is me, everybody doesn't like me. And so like I remember just gravitating towards my dad because of how lighthearted he was and how he made things fun.
Mhm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, he was a huge disciplinarian. Like, you better pray 5 times a day, and like you're fasting. And so, but he was a lot more, he explained things to us, he
Mm.
made us understand. So it was just easier to gravitate to my father.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. And then you started getting a little older and into those teenage years, and it sounds like you were confronted with some realities around your future that didn't match what you were hoping for.
Well, so I was actually saved by one of my dad's business partners when I was around 14 or 15. We went to Pakistan for the first time ever. We
Wow.
get me and my siblings were born and raised in California. And then around 14 or 15, and mostly because it was me. I was like, I want to go to Pakistan. I want to go to my homeland. I want to see my family. I want to see where I came from at
Mm.
14. And so I'm 14, 15. My dad, mom, all my siblings, we went to Pakistan. And I remember my mom and I were just not getting along, like not
Hmm.
at all. Like it was just very volatile between us. And I remember my dad sat me down in Pakistan and was like, hey, listen, like, you're lucky I'm not arranging your marriage right now. Yeah, he was
Were
like,
you
my,
expecting that at all?
yeah, yeah. Well, so a lot of people thought at that age that we were going was to
To
get
do
me married.
that. Yeah.
Huh, yeah. I kind of had a feeling that wasn't gonna happen. And it had a lot to do with how well I was doing in school. And honestly, I just knew my dad, I was like my dad's favorite. So I know he wasn't ready for me to get married off. I remember, but I do remember him sitting me down after one really vicious argument with my mom. Really, really, uh, he was just, I remember the look on his face. He was just so
Mm.
like resigned. He just didn't know what to do, you know, with my
Yeah.
mom being in the depressed state she was. And then there's me going through my teenage years, and then everybody around him telling him to marry his eldest daughter off. And I knew he didn't want to do it. So
Mm.
he sat me down and he's like, hey, you either act right or we're finding the next man and you're getting
Yeah.
married within the next 72 hours. Like, what are you going to do? I know. And so I just remember looking at my dad and didn't know what I was like, Dad, you know it's not me. Like like give me a chance here. And then that's when he told me, he's like, the only reason, honestly, I'm not marrying you off is because his business partner, which actually was her name was Mary, and Rosemary, and he was like, Rosemary told me, he's like, you can go to Pakistan, you can do whatever you want with any of your other children, but Mariam, just you leave her alone, and she better not come back to America married. Like,
Chills.
yeah, yeah. And he's like, I listened to her for the last 30 years, and she's part of the reason my dad accumulated wealth and was as successful as he was because of this woman. And so, of course, he heeded what she said. He's like, I don't want to disappoint her, but you're help me help you. And I was like, okay, I need to be more mature than my mother.
Yeah, right. How, yeah.
At 15, 14, 15 years
Yep.
old, I need to be the adult between me and my mother. And
Yep.
I just remember seeing the pain in my dad's face about just everything that was going on. And so I was like, you know what? Okay, I got it. I got it. And so that lasted until I was 18 years old, got my, I got a couple academic scholarships. And my dad was like, that's great, but your husband's going to decide on
Yeah.
where you're gonna go to school. And I was like,
Yeah.
what husband? He's like, the one we're gonna go and get you now in Pakistan. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll be back. And so at that day, I happened to go pick up my best friend, who's actually retiring next month from the army. Actually, I went to go pick her up from the.
Congratulations.
I know, I'm so proud of her. It's actually exactly a month from now, June 26th,
Wow.
and I'm going to her retirement ceremony. I actually can't believe it's been 20 years, but
Wow.
so I went to go pick her up from the recruiter station, and she remembered. I remember she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "You know, this is what my dad said." And she's like, "Just come inside for a little bit." And so I went to the recruiter station, and I was signed up. I was signed up. I went and took my ASVAB test to get into the military, and yeah, I was signing up to join the military during wartime. Oh,
Isn't
four.
it just like amazing? I don't know what your relationship with like divine intervention is at this phase of your life, but it just is remarkable to me that like all of those components were perfectly available for you, you know, that your best friend just so happened to be at the recruitment center and needing to be picked up on the day when your dad told you that you walked in, that it made sense to your brain, that it was like a valid way. I mean, I don't know how it was
I
experienced.
absolutely no, absolutely. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in everything happening for you
Mm.
and to you, not like at you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I just think we're such there's there's no way that before we're born we like, for example, when two parents are getting married, they're blonde. What's the chance of the baby being blonde? Pretty high, right? Like eye color, hair color, stuff like that can be actually tested and figured out at this point. So you're telling me that our lives can't be figured out and ready for us before we're born?
Yeah.
So, and this is all coming to my awareness in the last couple of years, and so I don't know how well I can articulate it, but I'll try my best. It's something that I've come to realize that coincidence, that's not coincidences.
Yeah.
Like it's just aligned so perfectly. You're telling me that just so happened to have this
Just
argument, then going to pick up my bestie, then joining the army during wartime. Like, come on. It's a series of fortunate events that
yeah.
I believe happened
You were
in favor
given,
of me.
it was like there was one door and that was the only thing. And then all of a sudden, this other door, it just happened to come at just that moment.
Exactly.
Ah, so you went ahead, you joined the army. And I have
Yes.
to tell you a side note, I joined the US Army at one point.
Ah, well, hello,
Thank you.
battle.
For one day. It was I was sworn in. I went through the whole recruitment process and the whole like 13 hour. Actually, we probably went to like the same big building in LA for the like 13-hour
Sacramento.
day.
The MEPS.
You went to Sacramento?
I was in Sacramento.
I
You were
was
in
in
LA?
LA. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I was going to school at UC Santa Barbara. I grew up in San Diego, so I'm also from California.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, like I like did my like swearing and got my picture, got my card, and then and I'm signing the contract, and it says like I was going to be a cryptolingual analyst. Like I told you, I was a linguistics major. I know it was like a really fucking rad job. I know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was going to get to go to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey. Like that was
Monterey.
my
Oh
dream. Yeah.
my gosh.
So I'm signing the thing, and I had just passed the lie detector test with Langley. Like that was my big accomplishment. And it says this little checkbox that you have to check. And it says, if you've ever been in the Peace Corps, you cannot have this job. And if you've ever had this job, you cannot be in the Peace Corps. And I was like, oh, and I say to the person, I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm like a Peace Corps kind of person. Like, why does it say that? And they're like, well, because you'll have been a spy. Like,
And you didn't sign up after they said that? Oh my gosh. Well, okay, here I go.
I was like, oh, I don't know if maybe that's the right thing. Cause you know, the other thing that I was like, I was either going to do that or go to get a master's of divinity and master's of social work at a seminary. So it was like,
Oh, conflicting.
yeah, I was like, I wanted to do it for the language aspect of it. And I didn't
Not for everything
quite
that,
want to
right.
do the war aspect of it. Yeah.
I
But
hear you.
all that to say, because I had a full ride to the master's program, I was able to be like, sorry, never
Sorry.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But our
So
paths could
funny.
have crossed.
It could, they might have still. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyways, okay, so you got all set with that. You left your dad's house, you did that, and then did you go back to your dad's house and tell him?
No, the recruiter called my dad. So when I signed up for the army and I like swore and everything, I was like,
Yeah.
I still need to make it out of the house. Like, how is that gonna happen?
So
Like
you
I've
told the
never,
recruiter the
yes.
situation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I told them the situation. I'm like, if you guys can help me figure out how I can safely make it out of my house. And not that I was afraid of like getting
Right.
like, anything happen to me,
But like a
but I
legitimate reason to get out of it.
right. And I didn't want to leave my house in that like I'm running away.
Yeah.
Like I'm taking off. You're never gonna hear
Yeah.
from me. These are my parents. I love them. I don't want them
Yeah.
to think something happened to me. And God forbid they thought I ran away with a boy. Like, no.
Right.
Like that's absolutely not what I wanted to do. So I let the recruiter sergeant know, like, hey, listen, if you can help me figure out how to get out of my house, how to put my parents at ease, like, let's go do it.
Yeah.
So the recruiter actually changed out of her uniform, put on civilian clothes, female.
Wow.
She was a female. She came to my house,
Wow.
a meeting with my mom and my dad, and said I had gotten another scholarship to go to an all girls academy overseas.
Oh.
So again,
What an incredible, like thoughtful person to know how to navigate that.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
she
Another
did.
really divine, like, because it could have been some dumbass white guy who came in and was like, oh yeah, let's go,
You can't tell them the truth,
Right.
or like, yeah, it was gonna
Right.
be no, she was a
Wow. Because she really knew
very
how to navigate
mhm,
that.
yeah. And so she came to the house, had this conversation with my parents, totally put them at ease. And I was off to the military, and still didn't tell my dad for months. So one of the other recruiters called.
So she didn't say it was a military school?
No, she didn't say it was military school. She said it was a female, like academic, like sorority type overseas program. Yeah, like a
Oh my
boarding school
God.
for women.
Because you were 18. So she didn't like legally
I
have to
was
tell them.
18. Right. I was 18 and as yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So you're
This is
sitting
over.
there going like,
Yeah, it was I still do
that's a
remember
savvy
feeling so
person.
guilty. Yeah, but I still felt gross and guilty. And I was
Yeah.
like, I can't believe I'm lying to my parents. My
Yeah.
dad, I feel terrible about lying to him. And like, but I was so ready to go. Like, I was like, I'll do whatever. I don't want to have arranged marriage. I see what it's done with my cousins.
You were in a tight spot and your dad was in a tight spot, right? Like
Yeah,
you
for sure.
acknowledged, your dad was like, what am I supposed to do?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's looking back, obviously, I'm glad it happened the way that it did. And it was just, I was just so okay with lying to my mom and dad, joining the army during wartime, deploying, the real fear of deploying, just so that I didn't have to deal with an arranged marriage and the abuse
Yeah.
and like the no, I couldn't. And it's just something I had to, and it had to happen that way. It
Yep.
had to.
It's sort of like the train tracks, just those were the only, it was an extreme situation.
It
And so
was.
it called for extreme measures. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this piece that you are saying, like, I would love to have been able to be honest, right? Because you love your parents,
Of
and
course.
in an ideal world you would have been able to just be sincere and be honest. And it sounds like that's, like we said at the start, one of the reasons why it feels like such a relief and such a joy to be able to live your life so authentically now.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember locking all my social media down when I finally got social media, which was like another 4 or 5 years later. Because, this is '04 when everything was
Yeah.
happening. So, like a few years later, I remember getting social media and just locking everything down, like screening everybody who was
So
sending me friend
stressed.
requests. Because I was trying to hide the fact that I was in the military. So, even though my dad kind of found out, I never confirmed it. Like, I never was like, yeah, I'm in the army. Even when I was deployed to Pakistan as a linguist, and my dad found me in the mountains. It's insane. My dad, like, taken
Tell
that guy from
this
Texas,
story.
has
Tell this
nothing to it has
story.
nothing on my dad. So I was Pakistan in 05, '06 had a massive earthquake in Muzaffarabad, massive, completely leveled that whole area. I was stationed in Germany. I was in HR. I was HR doing admin work for the army, and I
Mhm.
remember the unit down like a couple cities over from us. It was called the 212 MASH, which MASH stands for Mobile Army Surgical
Yep.
Hospitals, the last MASH in the army. And I remember they were going to Pakistan for this
Yeah.
Operation Lifeline. And I remember going to my leadership, like, please let me go. Please, I'll do anything. It's my country. Like, this is a
I
perfect
speak the language.
opportunity.
Yeah.
I speak the language. I'll do whatever. Like, and at the time, my language wasn't even offered as an like a language identifier. And so I was like, I could go. And mind you, I didn't even think I spoke the language actually, because it was in a whole nother area of Pakistan. Like, we're from like,
It could have been. Yeah. Could have been a
I didn't
completely
care.
different dialect.
I did not care. I was gonna figure it out. Like, put me
And
on
you're
the
like,
freaking
I can do
stove.
it.
Yeah. Well, luckily for me, I had an exceptional like first sergeant, which uh to explain the rank structure is going to take a whole nother podcast. I'm not doing it here. I'll follow me. I'll explain it later. But my first sergeant, who was phenomenal and amazing and just like completely supported everything I've ever done since I was at that unit. He's like, all right, we're getting you there. So yes, he had me on the first flight with the 212 MASH. We went to Muzaffarabad. We stood up the mobile army surgical hospital. So pretty much it was like a tent
Yeah.
city
Yeah. Yeah.
hospital.
Hmm.
And we were just, taking care of the people that were affected by the earthquake, people that were pulled out of like rubble a week later. So
Yeah.
I saw some intense things. And my dad just so happened to be in Pakistan at the same time, about 15 hours away near Islamabad. And we were up north in Muzaffarabad. And I remember just convoying. I left Frankfurt, Germany, flew
Hmm.
to Islamabad. We landed in Islamabad. We had a convoy 18 something hours, 18 to 20 hours.
Wow.
And mind you, the earthquake just happened. So
Yeah.
there was no road. There's
Yeah.
no, like, there's still landslides happening from the
Yeah. After
aftershocks.
effects. Yeah.
And I remember a month there, I was in the actual like ICU area of the hospital translating for some of the new mothers. There's women having like there's a
Of
whole thing
course.
going on. So
Probably
I
put a
remember
couple people into labor.
100%, 100%, and these poor people lost their homes, lost family members. There was just so much going on. I remember I was in the hospital in ICU specifically, and one of the soldiers came and got me and was like, "Hey, your dad's at the gate." What the crazy thing was, I believed it. I was like, "Oh, okay, it tracks."
Like,
my
that makes sense.
my dad would find me in
Did
the
you
middle
tell
of
him,
a
like, I'm heading to
Yeah,
Pakistan?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. My dad
Okay.
always knew my movements. He might have not known I was in the military or
Or
I didn't
like,
know he
what was he thinking your
confirmed.
job was at the time?
He thought I was in school still.
But I'm just gonna go help these people.
I told him I volunteered with the army to go help Pakistani people. And my dad blindly trusted any word I said. But
Oh my
I think
gosh. I think he knew
I
the
know
whole time.
I know he knew. And so I remember like, oh, okay, I'll be back.
You're like, let me
The
go see
doctor.
him.
I was like, I'll be right back. And so no, my dad was at the front gate, and there
Love
was
it.
the Pakistani army was protecting the gates.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just remember them like just partying, and there was my dad, and I was in uniform. He's
Yeah, I was
never
gonna
seen
say you're in full gear.
full
Yeah,
uniform. My dad
yeah, yeah.
never seen me outside of Pakistani clothes before. Never seen me in American clothes.
Never seen you in
Here I
pants.
am. Never seen me in pants exactly. So now here I am in full camo with his name on my chest. And I just remember
I
the look
really
of
wish
like,
we can make a movie of this, I hope, because this is gonna be the scene where everyone's like, can't you see it? Like you're walking and you're like seeing the whole psychological process of you and you're like looking at yourself and then like the
what do I do?
army
Do I go
parts and
change? I
there's your
can't change. It's all I have. We're deployed. Like, what do I do?
we're living in a tent city. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
there he
my
was.
there he was. There he was. I
That's
just
so beautiful.
even now, it's like just how epic my dad is. Like he's so
Yeah.
fucking badass. My dad's so cool. So he finds me in fucking tent city, in the middle of Muzaffarabad, or like the epicenter of the earthquake.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
know how he found me. Wasn't surprised.
Word
He
of
shows up.
mouth.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
just said, where's the US Army? Let's send me, help me find it.
My dad would have found me if I was in another planet. I just know it. I know I'm his favorite. I know I'm like we're connected somehow. I know we're connected. There's so many, and
Yeah.
that's like oh, another podcast.
I was
There's been
gonna
so
say
many
you've been through a couple of lifetimes.
with yeah. There's been a few times where this is kind of a side thing, but in my life when there's crazy things that's happened, I've called my dad and he could tell me what just happened, and I
Yeah.
was in a whole nother country, a whole nother time zone. And he literally could tell me, this is what happened, this is what you did, this is what you do next.
Isn't that so cool?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
real blessing.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Mm.
very blessed to have the father that I did. And so yeah, he still didn't tell him I was in the army though. Like, no, they
I
just
feel like they gave me an
I have
outfit.
to, I have to wear this. I kind of like you don't need to
They just
blend in.
stitched my name on just real quick.
Yeah, oh my God.
I
Yeah.
love it. You know
Hmm.
he knew the whole time. Oh,
Oh,
but he
that's the
wanted
first.
to see you and make sure you were okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. So how long did you serve?
8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I served 8 years. So after Pakistan came back to Germany, got out. Oh, came back to Germany, re-enlisted, and I went to Qatar. I went to
Okay.
Doha.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 years in Doha, and that's where I ended the contract with the military and got out. Yeah. And then came back to the States for about a year and a half, got my degree, got a couple of IT certifications, and then went back overseas. I went to
Okay.
Afghanistan.
Okay.
Yeah, as a Department of Defense contractor.
Okay.
So I was pretty much doing the same thing I did in the army, but like as a civilian and making
Yeah.
like quadruple pay and
Exactly.
tax free.
Yeah.
And so I was in Kabul, Afghanistan, and then I was in Afghanistan for a little under 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went back to Doha for like 2 months, didn't last. And then I came back to America. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a go of it in America.
Mm.
I wasn't I never lived in America as an adult. So by this time I was like 28, 29. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to, be civilian, be like one of these normal people.
See what that's like. During the
Yeah.
that whole like between like leaving the army and coming back, was there ever a time when you were with your parents where they were like talking about marriage, like trying to ask you about marriage, like, or
Oh,
did
that
they
never
just,
stopped. Yeah, that was the whole time. That never stopped from when I joined the military to being in 8 years and then getting out. There, every time, every chance they got, they brought it up. Every
hmm
chance.
hmm. And
Yeah.
where do you think you found that like fortitude to be able to consistently in the face of all that say, I'm not doing it?
Because grew up with them having an arranged marriage and seeing what it was like to them, and seeing my relatives and family members having these same arranged marriages, and the abuse, and um, just some of the most vile things I've ever seen humans do to each other in my personal experience was a marriage partnership that was arranged. And it was just absolutely not something I wanted to do. I want to be married. I'm single. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I do want marriage. I do want children, but it was going to be the way that I wanted it, and it wasn't going to be through an arranged marriage. And
Mhm.
it finally got to my dad probably after I got out of the army. He's like, "Listen, just get married. I don't even have to have arrangement. Just
Okay.
give me some grandkids."
Okay.
Yeah, and so it took some time because he would just not drop it,
Hmm.
and then it started becoming a joke. It's like, oh, so I would bring my friends over, of course, to visit. And he's like, I can take both of you guys to Pakistan. We can
Yeah.
get somebody to, arrange marriage, both of you guys. And my friends always I love my dad. So they always like played into it and joked around with him. So it actually turned into a joke eventually. And then not so much when I became closer and closer to 30. And he's like, okay, like I need grandbabies. What are you doing? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And are your parents still with us?
My dad passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Mhm.
And when you all were like closer to then, were you able to connect with him on some of this and like,
Unfortunately, 2 years before my dad passed, we had a petty argument, petty. And my dad's stubborn, I'm stubborn. But I knew he was wrong. I just knew. I just and it was one of those things that I was like, I'm not letting this go. Like you were wrong. I deserve an apology. And I didn't let it go. Didn't let it go. For 2 years, I didn't talk to my dad. Or if we did, it was very, very intermittent, like months, in between. And then I found out that he was sick with COVID, and I was in
mm,
Jordan. I was in Jordan at the time, and so by the time I came back, he was too far gone. There's nothing that could happen. And all my life, my dad was pretty sick. Like he never really took care of himself physically, emotionally. The best thing my dad ever did was divorce my mother.
mm,
She just aged him
mm-hmm,
considerably. And if when he remarried my stepmom, I swear he gained back 10 years. He was
mm-hmm.
happy, he was healthy. So I'm very close with my stepmom.
Okay.
I appreciate her so much. And yeah, he just was never healthy though. And so when he got COVID, I just knew he wasn't going to make it. And so I came back from Jordan. At the time, I was in Amman, still working for Department of Defense. This time I was doing IT. And he knew I was back. We talked, and then the last conversation that me and my father had was that he was sorry, and it was the apology that I wanted from 2 years ago. And instead of it being, I love you, I'm so proud of you, thank you for everything, and mutually, like me and him, it was I'm sorry. And because of our pride and our ego and us being stubborn, we lost 2 years, all because I wanted to prove a point. And at that moment, having to hear the words "I'm sorry" being the last word that was spoken by my dad is something that obviously still gets to me. And one of the things of many that made me realize I needed to change.
These moments where again, we don't know and can't make sense of how this is the plan, how
Mm-hmm.
this is the way, right? This is not the door that I wanted, right? To go into a healthier, um, more honest, more
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable version of me. This is not the way I wanted to get that.
Absolutely. It was necessary. It had to happen this way for me, I feel like. Do I wish it was different? Yes. 100 times yes. 100 years over yes.
Yeah.
But if it hadn't happened any other way, I wouldn't be where I'm at now.
Yeah. Yeah. I often say if I ever get a chance to talk to God, if there is one, I'm just gonna say I disagree with your methods. Disagree with your program design. However, it is effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a wild, wild thing. Um, to be faced with these moments where we're given ultimately the thing that we do want that lines up, you know, this reality where you get to be this version of you. um but for so many people, though, what begins that process, people can get really stuck there and resenting how that transformation began.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think for you was the allowed you to have the grace to say, yeah, that was not how I wanted that to go, but I'm going to still learn from it. I'm going to still use it to be the person ultimately that I want to be.
That was the beginning of a shift that was happening internally for me. And then after he passed and seeing how family members reacted in his passing, my dad was generous. My dad was charitable. He built mosques in Pakistan. He gave his last anything to anybody who needed it. He was the one that took care of the family. He took care of my mom's mom, his mother-in-law, better than my own mother is taking care currently of my mom or my
Mm-hmm.
grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of it, instead of his character or instead of his accomplishments, instead of his generosity, everybody was it was like, what do I get? What he passed away, like what's in it for me? And my dad always used to be on my case about, not being selfish, thinking of others. What's your impact in this world going to be? Are you a good person? And it all made sense after he died, after he passed away, and I realized what he was trying to get through to me. And seeing how everybody reacted, and there was just no consideration to his life of what he's done other than the wealth that he accumulated.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself made me disconnect from other people and their opinion and
Oh, yeah.
what I didn't. After that happened, I'm like, I don't give a flying fuck what you think. If this is how
Yeah.
you reacted when somebody did so much for you, like, who gives a shit if you're talking shit about me during the army or that, like, whatever. And so I would like to say it was almost overnight, but it wasn't. It was a series of, like my dad passing away, how the family reacted after he passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and then me realizing that I needed to pick myself up and figure it the fuck out. I always had my dad. I wish I could fall back on my dad. He wasn't
Yeah.
here now. And so between the death of my father, seeing how everybody reacted, how he spent his whole life accumulating wealth, taking care of us, providing for us, and how it was repaid, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, fuck that. No, this is not how I'm going to function in this world. And if people have opinions on him, they can go shove it. Because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, the, my dad, who was the amazing person that he was, and this is how he got treated, like, wow,
Yeah.
what is, so it's like, okay, fine. You can't win. You
Yeah.
just can't,
Well, it allowed
so
you to see like all this whole thing of like do the right thing and then everything will be good and people will,
no, right.
and it's like, well, why am I trying so hard if the
Why
whole
do I
thing is
can't? Why do I
fickle
care so much
anyways?
about people's opinions? These same people that are dragging, my dad's like his legacy
Mm-hmm.
through filth because they're being greedy and jealous. And so I was like, I'm not even
You could let them
an
go.
eighth of exactly. I was like, I'm not even an eighth of what my father was, and I'm over here giving all my energy towards these people, situations, and things. No, no. And so My big way of so my dad passed away, and then all this happened. I actually shut down for a solid year and a half. I shut down,
Hmm.
went black. I turned off all my social media, disconnected from online, disconnected from friends, quit my job, and I just was a hermit in my room, just miserable. And a year of that. And so I was
Mm.
like, if I'm gonna be this pathetic and miserable, I'm gonna at least read. I'm gonna at least like journal. I'm gonna do all the things that are like, the YouTube people are telling me to do. And I just kind of faked it. I was like, if they're saying gratitude journaling works, fuck it, let me try.
Yeah.
If they're saying meditation works, let me go find the TM instructor that I could find. And so it was a lot of like, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe
Yeah.
any of it. Honestly, they say that just have faith. My faith was like 10%. And like 90% of it was like, this is fucking woo-woo bullshit. This
Yeah.
isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it fucking works.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be that you believe in it. It's like
Right.
it's the literal, I'm reading a very cool book right now about the like mind body connection, but it's even like making your mouth into a slight smile. Like your physiology changes.
Yes. Yes.
You
Yes. And
don't
it's so
have to
true.
believe it.
You don't. And I'm not a big fan of fake it till you make it, but I am now. Like you literally, I hated journaling for some reason. And I remember one of my teachers from when I was in elementary school was like, "You're so good at writing," and I started journaling, and I would write things I was grateful for. And I remember when I first started, and it was like, "I'm grateful for waking up today.
Mm,
I'm grateful that I got out of my bed and brushed my hair and brushed my teeth." And then slowly it became more detailed. It slowly became bigger and bigger things. And it was so crazy how that happened. So in the beginning, when I first started journaling, I was like, oh, I don't really want to journal. I don't want
yeah.
to do this. And I started journaling, like, I'm glad I'm awake. I'm glad I ate today. I'm glad I brushed my teeth. I'm glad I walked outside.
Yeah.
And then slowly it went into bigger and bigger things. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I signed up for school again. I'm so glad I decided to do the licensing for in-home care. I'm so glad this. And then it went from like this slope, right? Where it started off really low, like, oh, I'm glad to be breathing.
Yeah, it's like the only thing you could come up
Yeah,
with.
it's been
Like,
3 days. I finally pooped.
yeah,
Like,
right? It's
you
like,
know,
okay,
it's
I can pee.
exactly. And then it slowly, like, it started this, like, kind of like a bell curve
Yeah,
of gratitude, but in a sense that it went from very basic, minimal things to like bigger and bigger and bigger things, and then back down
too
to
simple.
simple things that were so tiny,
Yeah.
so tiny. Like you said about the smiling, right? So I remember in the beginning of my journey of like just getting myself out of this self-imposed fucking dark hole of misery.
Yeah.
uh I remember reading something, and it was actually something I was enjoying reading, and an awareness came to me, and it was like, Mariam, why are you frowning?
Mm,
Why are your eyebrows furrowed? Like, why are you you're reading something that actually is interesting?
yeah.
And I remember internally this little voice saying, girl, smile, like, this is funny.
Ah,
And I remember journaling, like, I had a thought to smile, and I smiled. So it went from like, I'm glad I have fresh water to drink, to I got a random deposit for $120,000 from the VA, to
thank
back
you.
down. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to back down to the flowers smelled really nice
Yeah.
in the supermarket today.
Mm.
Have you, there's this saying that I love so much, and I don't remember who said it. And it was like, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah,
After
yeah, yeah.
enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
I think it was Buddha who said
Was
it.
it Buddha?
I think
Yeah.
maybe. But
Taoism, Buddha, one of them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's so true because it's like, and in the whole manifesting world, people are like the mansions, the cars, the
Yeah.
dream partner. And it's like at the end of the day, those things are still, like you said earlier, like people, situations, things, they can shift, they can change, they can go away. And then if you have the like, oh, like I have fresh water, like, oh, I went to the bathroom today. Actually, in Judaism, the first prayer that you say upon waking is thank you that the pipes that stay open, like need to open, open, and that the pipes that need to close, close, because you go to the bathroom and you like
I love
Say
that.
thank you for isn't that just, like, so beautiful? Because it's like, that is a miracle in and of itself, that we wake up and the pipes are, like, moving in the right direction, you know? Ah, so gorgeous. So, when you were describing the, like, self-imposed, dark hole, the image that came to my mind was, when caterpillars go into the cocoon, did you know that they turn into like a black goop and all of the cells um are become like undifferentiated cells. So they go in like I'm a caterpillar leg cell, like I'm a caterpillar heart cell, whatever. They go in like differentiated cells and then they lose their identity. And
No,
yeah,
I didn't even know that.
yeah, and they become like just non-specific cellular matter that's like a literal goop. And then they differentiate. I know, it gives me chills every single time. They become differentiated and form a butterfly. So the butterfly
Wow.
is not like parts of the caterpillar. It becomes nothing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I feel like that year was like your goop year. You
It
had to like,
felt like a group year. I felt like goop. I literally felt like exactly how you just described. I felt like I just became this disembodied,
yeah,
like I don't know who I am, what my life is. Oh my gosh, wow. What an analogy. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
And you
I'm
needed that,
yeah.
right? Because
I did.
you built a new person, it sounds like.
Yeah. 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 You're absolutely right. And I love that visual and thank you for explaining it that way. Because now I can articulate that because I just didn't know what that was. I genuinely didn't.
Yeah,
This is why I'm so glad that I'm talking about what's happened
yeah,
because such, I am so honored that you picked me to talk to about this on your podcast because this is so reaffirming and talking to you about it, talking to people about it, people who's going to listen to your podcast and just understanding and together coming out the opposite end where you're helping me understand still what I went through and your wisdom and your knowledge and your empathy of listening to me and allowing me the stage. Like I am so grateful, Z. Like thank you.
mm.
Don't
I
make me cry. I
really
didn't wear waterproof mascara.
well, the mascara on your face is evidence that we had a authentic connection, and that to me is the whole reason to be here is, if you have black running down your face, it means we were really in each other's lives, affecting each other's lives. We weren't just showing somebody how you can, go through something hard and start your own business and buy a house and that's all super cool. And I'm so happy for you that you have all of that. But what you have that's even more like enduring is this assurance that you've gone through the goop and you've rebuilt a life that you can feel is meaningful. And if you can do that once, then you can do that 1,000
For
times.
sure. 120%. I am very grateful for everything that's come out of, I guess, this butterfly phase of mine. But I'm very disconnected in the sense that, and again, it could be an amalgam of everything that I've been through, right? With my dad's passing, me taking time, a year and a half, just shutting everything down and understanding what's going on. To TM meditation alone has done so much for me, and the gratitude journaling. I could lose it all again, and I'm totally detached from it. And I'm grateful, but it's not a marker or indicator of my happiness, my abundance, my fortitude, what I've been through
Yeah,
because of detachment.
yeah,
Mhm.
incredible. And I would love to hear a little bit more about like what you're finding now in this more recent chunk about the vulnerability, about the like not coming in and saying like, oh, I've got it all, I'm doing it all, like that piece about just really being able to say like, oof, there's still things that I'm, battling or facing, or moments that are hard, and how being more open about that has been supportive for you.
Good question, because there's so many people, influencers, things out there that I feel like want to do the right thing, or their intentions are to help, but there's a level of depth for people who've been through the actual thing, right? And don't get me wrong, like I'm guilty for following an influencer that put on like the Dubai lifestyle, the Huda beauty makeup
Dubai Bling
people.
is one of my favorite shows, by the way.
Oh my God, I'm
I'm
ashamed
like
to say
super
that I
obsessed with it.
same. I don't even have a TV, and I literally like was like, I'm gonna watch this. And I so like I'm guilty of that too, but there's
Yeah.
like there's I have something to say, and my heart and intentions are in a place where I know that what I'm gonna say, do, and put out in the world is gonna be received very well because of what I've been through. And what the last thing I wanted to do, and it came from, the self-discovery of what I'm meant to do. And I know my soul's purpose, and I know what I'm here to do. And it has to do with people, and it has to do with serving, and it has to do with taking care of others and showing others that it can be done, but you first have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, it's not that it's hard, but it's not easy either. It's something that you need to work at day to day. Happiness isn't something that you do once and you have forever. Like you don't eat once and then you're never hungry again. You don't sleep enough where you never sleep again. So it's this self-discovery, coming out the other end successful, happy, adjusted, detached, um, at peace, that I want others to experience, and to experience in a way that is relatable. And I'm not going to be relatable if I'm on a mega $1 million yacht that I rented for the weekend with mom and dad's money. And I'm not taking a shot at anybody out there that's doing it. I'm freaking guilty of watching that. But it's
I
the
mean, they
reality.
are they are offering something and we are receiving it. And, everybody's on their path, but that's not the path that's feeling right for you.
And it's not feeling right for me and for others. And I want others to see the realness behind it. One of the things that I said that when and if I was going to come out of this, because at the time I didn't know. I was like, I'm going to be 100% genuine to who I am. I'm
Mm.
tired of hiding for the last, God,
Mm.
30
Decades.
something years. Yeah. I'm tired of hiding that, And so I was like, I remember making everything public. I remember making my Instagram public, making my Facebook public, unblocking my family members. I'm like, no, you guys are gonna fucking see me
You're gonna
now.
see all of it.
You're gonna fucking see all of it. I'm not hiding
Let's go.
anything. I'm not hiding anything. Don't get me wrong, though. I did have to clean it up a little bit because the old Mariam and the new Mariam,
Kind of really different.
very different. And I wanted to present myself in a in
Yeah.
a more authentic, more me way. So there's some cleaning. I'm not gonna lie and say that I was this angel of sorts, but it was a lot of really honing in on how I want to show up in this world and who I am. And again, it could be something completely different in a year's time from now, or even like a week's time from now. Who knows? But I know that when I made everything public, I unblocked my family members. I was like, you guys are getting the raw deal. Like either you guys like it or you don't. I had a drinking problem. I had a binge eating problem. I lost my fucking money 3 or 4 times. I wasn't the most honest, truthful person originally. And I was kind of scammy at one point. But now that I learned from all that shit,
I love
I'm
it.
no
I was
longer
kind of scammy at one point.
and it was
No,
something I
but
had to learn.
I mean, the end of the day, like when we're trying to control other people's perception of ourselves, that's manipulation. Like that's a
Exactly.
scam, and your
Mhm.
soul knows more than anything else when you're being dishonest. Like
Oh, 100%.
Our souls make it clear how they feel about that. It is,
Mhm.
and that's where, from my experience, that's where some of that like trying to consume to like quiet down that voice comes from. It's like that soul is going like, hey, stop it. And it's like, shh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then that's how my life auto corrected. Z, like, my God, I just remember just realizing when I'm like, fuck, I haven't drank. I'm not stuffing my face at night. I'm fully present when I'm talking to my friends and family. I'm not worried, like, oh my gosh, I wonder if they,
Yeah.
saw this. I wonder if they know that, like, fuck. It was just like such a relief.
Mm,
And how all those habits, all those things that like that I did in the shadows fell away
yeah.
from me.
Yeah. Because you didn't need it anymore because you were out in the sunshine and there wasn't something to hide.
I
Ugh.
was in the daylight. Everything was out in the open. And one of the things, and maybe I might feel different in a year's time or next week, but I don't want to die with any secrets. I want the world to know me for who I am and how I am and how I operate. Yeah.
And then you get to actually receive love and not
Mhm.
have to question it. Because if they know who you are and they love you, whoever it is, it's
There's
like
no doubt about it.
yeah, if I'm hiding even the smallest thing, anything I receive, I'm going to say, but it might,
But
you know?
I kind of didn't was truth in my truth about this.
So I
And
block
then
myself from everything.
you put it up yourself. You put that block there yourself. And it's like I wonder why people treat me like crap. Or that person stole from me. Well, what were you doing? Like, or like this person gypped me. This person like cheated me. Well, how were you showing up? And it was like
Yeah.
these little micro awarenesses that happened in the last like 3 to 4 years that I was like, wow, it is me. It's 100% me. I need to show up how I want to show up to others and how I expect others to treat me. And the reality that I create is a reality that's being projected.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a gosh darn mirror that is so fucking
Mirror,
accurate. It is
mirror.
uncomfortable.
It's only uncomfortable if you're acting in that manner. It's an internal locus of control. It's what
Yeah.
you need to take control of. And if you're scared about your employees being shitty, well, maybe you shouldn't be so shitty.
Yeah, yeah,
If you're
yeah.
afraid that you're not delivering on or you're not showing up to these family functions because you're worried about what they think, well, what are you thinking about your family members?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What are some
It's
judgments that
wild.
you're holding against them if you're
Yeah.
so worried about their judgment towards you?
Yeah, you're judging their judgment.
Right? Right. Like when we talk about it now, how ridiculous it doesn't sound.
We're
But
so
you don't
weird.
know. Right. Right. Exactly.
Oh my God. Uh, well, I'm so, so thrilled for you. I want to hear a little bit about just like this new reality that you're getting to enjoy. I know you had a really special experience just a few days ago that I can't
Oh my gosh,
imagine
Lee,
how
don't get me
affirming that
started. Oh,
was.
these are my mentors. These Alex and Layla Hermosi. So I actually found Layla first. And I at the time where I was that puddle of
Goop.
caterpillar muck
Re-gooping.
regooping. When I was regooping, I love that regooping. We
Please
gotta
write a book
copyright
called
it.
Re-gooping.
Let's copyright that right now. Regooping, and it's and
That's
I
going to be the
I
title of the episode, FYI.
I love it. I wholeheartedly sign off on that.
Re-gooping
I
with mom.
I saw a shorts or something of
Mhm.
Layla on my YouTube, and it was because at the time I had shut down everything. I wasn't watching TV. I wasn't watching crime shows. I wasn't on social media. I made it a point to only watch like business and self-help books.
Yeah.
And so, of course, because of what I was watching at the time and everything that I was reading, she popped up. Layla did, and one of the videos that I remember in the beginning that I saw of hers was something about her saying, "You can you can feel like shit and still do the thing." Right? So it
That's
was
good.
like, yeah, she said something like, tell your brain you can't walk in a circle, and then go walk in a circle. And while you're walking in a circle, say you can't walk in a circle. Like you're doing the thing still, right?
Yeah.
And so I just her like she has this way of delivering her the way that she speaks and how she articulates, and from such a place of depth and like experience,
Hmm.
and she doesn't give off. And I met her, so it's like seeing her and then meeting her and her being just the exact same. I was like, that's when I grow up. Mind you, I'm older than her. I was like, when I grow up, I want to be like that way. And you could feel it through the
Yeah.
videos. Like, she's
She
been through
just
some
seems
shit.
like unapologetic. Like,
Take it or leave it. This is what it is. And she's just very real and authentic in how she presents herself. And she doesn't put on any airs that this is easy and you're a dumbass for not figuring it out,
yeah.
and like
Yeah.
everybody can do it, and like, and she's so beautiful, like not just physically beautiful, but like genuinely in person, and how she speaks and interacts with people. And so I got approved for their scaling workshop, for their business scaling workshop. And I remember before going, and of course I haven't shut up about it for like since I got approved a month and a half ago. Like
You
everybody,
shouldn't have. It's super exciting.
God, I felt so honored. And like even my team, like my office, were like, just Miriam, are you going somewhere? Because we haven't heard yet. And so they were just egging on. They're just egging on me, just not be like just on and on about this. So then I went to the workshop, and I was so afraid that I was going to be in over my head, and I was going to be like drinking from a fire hose, because I just
Yeah.
started my business in January. And these are people that have, I remember sitting next to this guy that owned this medical examination company that was making 17 is making currently making 17 million a year. And then there's me, and I couldn't
You're like,
math. And
you're
I
like,
remember
I think I make money too. I think some too, also.
dot dot dot. So then he's helping me math my little like very modest like LTV, like lifetime value of my clients and everything. And his issue was something that I was like, oh, that's easy. Like his issue was people,
Yeah.
and like he couldn't keep his team, or he couldn't
Yeah.
hire the right people. And I had the opposite problem, where I have an amazing team. I have amazing caregivers. I have amazing employees. I just don't know how to sell.
Right.
And so it was just being in an environment with Layla and Alex Hormozy, and then having people that all were like similar to me. It was just very like reaffirming in how where I was and where I'm going.
Yeah.
And
Like
it was
you're not
such
scamming
a,
anymore. You legitimately are a part of
I
that
was
group.
part of this. What are those called? Those pyramid what are they called? They're pyramid scams, but it's pretty much like they're
What
called
do they
there's
call it?
they're
Multi-level marketing.
I did so many of those things, and I always just felt so dirty and scammy. And like I always felt like I was forcing people to like buy into whatever BS I was trying to sell at the time. But anyway,
But
I
again,
was
that probably is going to be a part that's really going to make you like be able to sell in a way with a lot of
authentic.
integrity.
Because I
Hmm.
never liked the quick cash and making that money really fast and forcing people to sign up for these things that they ended up hating me later for it. So it was like coming from that way of functioning, and then like a proper business where there's
Yeah.
like labor laws and like compliance in California and
Yeah, I've
taxes.
seen
And
some of your things about like, oops, like I am breaking so many laws right now.
it's got bail money. Put money on my commissary, please. Put money on my books. Uh, but yeah, I
I'll come
wouldn't have
visit you.
known that. Thank you.
Sure.
Joking, universe joking.
Scratch that.
Yeah, cancel. I wouldn't have known that part, and then now, or like there would have been no, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to compare,
Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
everything happens for a reason, to us and for us.
Uh, well, I'm so glad that
Everything happens
you've
for us. Yeah.
been through the goop and now you get to do some just like flying with your beautiful wings open and enjoy that for a while because we don't know what's next.
I
And
could eat shit next, which is
yeah,
fine, but I know how to recover now.
that's right. Aw.
Yeah.
Well, tell anybody anything you want them to know about like how they can connect with you, your socials, anything you want to share.
Oh, thank you, Z. Yes, I have Instagram and it's just my name, Mariam Dawood Kahn, Khan.
We'll put
And I do
everything in
have,
the description.
yeah, and YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I just post, business, personal life, just a bunch of stuff, just trying to figure out me, figure out what niche that I'm trying to go towards. I just started really taking social media seriously. I actually just opened my account back up again, like the beginning of this year. Yeah, I decided that I wanted to be back on the social media platforms, and that's the angle that I want to go. I joke that I be want to, and I'm not joking. I'm serious. I want to be an influencer, and I want to be an influencer for good,
Yeah,
and I want to put good out there. And so, yeah, if you guys please can follow me on Instagram, YouTube. I do have a free school community, SKOOL.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I do. I do in-home care agency startups. So if people need help, it's totally free. We have a community of people that are doing in-home care, non-medical in-home care, which pretty much is like you hire caregivers to go take care of the elderly in their homes. And again, I think a lot of it's from my guilt of not taking care of my dad has transmuted into this business. And I think that's why I'm doing so well with this business, because it's allowing me to feel
Yeah.
that
It's a
emptiness that I felt for not taking care of my dad.
it's a living amends.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And I love it. This is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. And I've done some badass shit. Like I've done some
Yeah.
legit shit. Yeah. But this business has been the most validating, fulfilling thing I've ever done. So yeah,
Well, and
drop
the way that
everything.
you're like, I'm sure you feel your dad with you and the legacy that maybe those family members weren't able to appreciate in the moment of his passing. It's that legacy is living on through you and the way that you're being of service in this area, especially in the US, where there is so little integrity with elder care. There are
Oh yeah.
so many
Yeah.
elders who are experiencing abuse and neglect. So I am sure that your dad is incredibly proud of you and
Thank you, Z.
how you're carrying on his legacy.
Thank you, Z. I
Hmm.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, this has just been such a joy. I'm so grateful for you, and I look forward to getting to know you better. I'm really glad that we crossed paths and yeah, just that we have the opportunity to be in a time space reality where both of us assigned female at birth may not have ended up with the freedom to just share about the really raw, really vulnerable, to be living our own lives on our own terms. So much to be grateful for. So thank you for
Yeah.
being in it and for sharing, and yeah, I'm just so grateful.
Thank you
I'm
so much
gonna
for having me. Thank you. I
mm,
appreciate you so much. It means a lot.
Okay, I'm gonna end the recording. You hang on a minute.
Mhm.